questions I get asked all the time is, how many Obsidian vaults do I need? I hear this in my Obsidian office hours, and I hear it in my Obsidian coaching. And there's really 4 different times when a person might want a second or even third, or in my case, 10th or 12th vault. The first one is testing something new. And we're going to dive into this from a technical standpoint of how it works today in this video. The second one is if you want to share content with others. This isn't one that everybody needs to do, but people like me who make content online and share Obsidian vaults with other people, we need to do that. The third one is when you want to make a fresh start. And we'll talk about some of the reasons that you might want to do that in today's video. And then the final reason is if you actually want some separation between some of the content that you work with in Obsidian. We'll talk about some of the reasons why that happens in real life today. So let's dive in. One of the best things about Obsidian is that it is infinitely customizable. As one of my favorite podcasters and writers, Gretchen Rubin, says, the opposite of a profound truth is also a profound truth. So one of the worst things about Obsidian is that it is infinitely customizable. We can change the appearance of Obsidian through all of the different community themes that are available, or even by customizing the base CSS of Obsidian. And we can add and improve functionality of Obsidian both through its own core plugins that we can disable, enable, and customize, and through the community plugins that we can download and customize and use as we see fit. You may have times as you're working with Obsidian where a plugin serves you for a while and then it doesn't, and so you'll even turn that off. So one of the biggest things that I think everybody does need a second vault for is testing. I don't think that you should just put new plugins or maybe even new themes into your vault without testing them. So let's take a look at how you set up a new vault for testing purposes. And I'll even show you what I do to keep a fairly current version of my vault available for testing new plugins and new themes. So we're here in my Obsidian vault, and there are 2 ways that you can access the Manage Vaults screen. The first is by going down into the bottom left corner and clicking on the name of your current vault. Mine is Extended Mine 4.0. And then you can click that Manage New Vaults window. The other option is to do Command P to open up the command palette. And you can see I already have opened another vault because I was testing this. But if this is not at the top of the window here, you would just start typing open, and then you'll see open another vault shows up. And that will also bring up this same vault management window. So once that screen comes up, then you now have options to set up your new vaults. So the list that's on the left-hand side of the screen, that is the vaults that are included in that drop-down list, or that drop-up list, I guess, when you are looking at vaults. You can change what's in that list by selecting the Remove from Vault. It doesn't do anything to actually remove the vault from the folders on your computer. All it does is remove it from that list. And so that can be really helpful if you want to just keep that list clean. I cleaned mine up a lot before I did this video because I'm usually testing 10 or 20 vaults. And so it was just easier for me to clean that list up. I can always go back in and add new vaults later, and I'll show you how to do that later. So here we're going to create our test vault. So I'm going to click Create New Vault, and then it is going to bring up the screen where I can select the name for my vault and where I'm going to store that vault. And I'm going to give it the name. I'm choosing test, and I'm using my test vault. This is perfect if you were a first-time user of doing a test vault. Then you're going to hit browse, and this is going to take you to the location where you want to store your Obsidian vault on your computer. So once I hit browse, it's going to bring up the Finder window, and it usually defaults to where your current vault is stored. And I store mine in the Documents folder in iCloud. I will say that I'm not using a sort of best practice because iCloud, storing files in iCloud can create some syncing issues. I have not experienced that, so your mileage may vary here. You should always start by following the instructions and then break the rules later. Now I'm going to give this a new folder where I'm going to store this vault a name. I like to name them the same as what I name the vault. It just keeps things easier. I'll hit save, and then I'll click create. And now this new vault has been created. We can see that this is just a new blank vault. I think that even at the very minimum, everybody needs to do this. You need to have a demo vault so that you can test out new appearance, new themes, new plugins, all of those sorts of things before you put them in your production vault. But I'm going to take you one step further and actually show you how I do it so that I'm keeping a copy, or at least a pretty up-to-date copy of my vault available to me so that I can test plugins on a fairly reasonable copy of what I'm actually using. And so about once a quarter, I will actually make a copy of my full vault and then open it as a new test vault and test everything on that. So let me walk you through what that process looks like. So I've gone to Finder on my Mac, and I've gone to where my vaults are stored, which again is that documents folder. You would go to where you have your documents stored on your computer. On a Mac, I can just right click the folder that houses my current vault, and I can select duplicate. Now I've already done that because it takes a little bit of time to do that. And so I wanted to make sure that I had everything prepped and ready for this video. So once I've duplicated it, you can see that it says extended mine 4.0 copy. And the reason that it's important to do that duplicate is that within that folder, since it's already been opened as an Obsidian vault, there are some Obsidian files that are hidden in there. And if you don't have your hidden files shown, which I don't in this version, then you're not going to see those files, but they're there, and they're what stores all the plugin and all of the appearance information. So once I make that copy, I'm going to rename it to my test feature, and then I'm going to go back to Obsidian and do what we just did before to open up that Manage Vault screen. But this time, I'm actually going to do Open Folder as Vault. Once I click that option, then I can go to where I just created that test copy, and you can see there's my test copy for YouTube, and I can click OK, and it's immediately going to open up that new copy, and you're going to get this warning that says, do you trust the author of this vault? Well, it's me, so of course I trust the author of this vault. I'm going to hit Trust Author and enable plugins, and this is going to take me to the plugin screen. And I love that it does this because this also allows me to do the other thing that keeps me from making terrible mistakes, which is go to the appearance screen and change this to light mode. I always use dark mode in my vaults, so light mode makes me go, oh, this is not my normal vault. This keeps me from accidentally creating content in this vault that I don't want to use for anything other than testing purposes. I want to create all my actual content in my regular vault and just use this vault when I'm testing out new things like new plugins or new themes or things like that. So this brings us to the second reason why you might want to include or add a second vault to Obsidian, which is if you've downloaded content from somebody like me or TFT Hacker or Mike Schmitz or one of the other Obsidian creators out there. We create content for you to use. And so I have open here in Finder, TFT Hacker's Incredible Journal Craft Vault, and you can see it here. So I'm actually going to go over to Obsidian, and I'm going to do that Manage Vaults thing again. And that's going to bring up the Manage Vaults window that we have grown more familiar with. And I'm going to open a folder as a vault, and I'm going to navigate until I find TFT Hacker's Journal Craft Vault. And I'm going to hit open. And so now I have TFT Hacker's beautiful Journal Craft Vault, which is an incredible resource. If you've not checked it out and you're interested in journaling in Obsidian, definitely something you should take a look at. And I can add that content to my vault now just by dragging and dropping if I need to. So the last two reasons why you might want to have a second vault are a little bit different. So the first one is that you just want a fresh start. I did this back in 2022. So I'd been using Obsidian for about a year and a half, and I realized that some of the ways I'd initially set it up just didn't work for me anymore. And so I wanted to create a fresh start. Of course, I wrote about it. So I will put links in the description below to all of the different articles and videos that I published on that. And I'll even put one of those videos up in the links here on the video. But that allows you to just start over again if you want to. None of your files are lost. That's the great thing about Obsidian. You can create a completely different looking vault and then drag the same folders and files into them and not really have to start from scratch if you don't want to. So you can be selective about that, or you can bring the whole thing in, but then start over again with your plugins and your themes. It's one of the great things about Obsidian. And the final reason that you might want to have an additional Obsidian vault is if you really want to have like a line of demarcation between two kinds of things. I know a lot of people who do this between their personal and their work life. I used to do this in my old life when I was a state employee, and all of my work and things that were created on my work computer were subject to public disclosure laws and sunshine laws. And so even though I'm not doing anything nefarious or illegal, I was very careful about what I did on my work computer and with my work accounts versus what I did with my personal computer. And I try not to let those two things ever cross over between one another. But you might also want to do this. Like I have a couple of clients who are Obsidian coaching clients who absolutely have done this in order to bring some of their stuff from Evernote in using the importer plugin. They put that into a separate vault. And then if they need to go get that, they can go grab it if they need to. So if that kind of Obsidian coaching sounds like something you might like, I'll put a link in the description below to either my Obsidian community where you can attend Obsidian office hours, or to my website where you can book a free 30-minute call with me to see if Obsidian coaching might be right for you. I hope you found this really helpful. I think it's a good idea to think about when and why you might need other vaults. And I get asked this question, as I said, so frequently that I hope it's really helpful to you. Have a great day, guys.